Hi and welcome to Best in Tesla. So we always hear a lot of noise about Tesla, how they are losing and doomed in China and there is a demand problem for Tesla's cars. But if we look at a little thing called the facts and compare Tesla to the German competition and their performance here in Q3 and maybe zoom out a bit to get a bigger picture as well, it becomes crystal clear that Tesla is looking extremely strong at a time where the German auto industry is collapsing. So let's check out all the numbers and let's dive right in. So before we dive into the quarterly performance from the Germans, let's start by zooming out a bit as well, because then it becomes very clear what is happening in China, that the Germans are shrinking fast and Tesla has become a big player in the country. So if we look at Volkswagen sales in China, well, in 2019 Volkswagen delivered about 4.2 million vehicles in China and was the number one automaker in the country. In 2020, Volkswagen Group delivered 3.8 million vehicles in China. In 2021, they delivered approximately 3.3 million vehicles in China, and in 2022, it was about 3.2 million vehicles. And in 2023, it was the year where BYD pushed Volkswagen off the crown as the biggest automaker in China. And here in 2024, Volkswagen are down in the 3 quarters about 12%. So Volkswagen could end up with about 3 million cars sold in China in 2024. That means that since 2019, they will have lost about 1.2 million units sales in China. Now that is troubling. That's a drop about 28.5% in just 5 years. Compare that to Tesla in China. Well, in 2019, they sold about 50,000 units. Last year, they sold about 610,000 units and is about 30,000 units in front of last year's numbers, even though they had a bad start to the year. Where all the Germans are crashing in China, Tesla is actually still growing. Tesla's earnings was back up in Q3. Their operating margins was 10.8% in Q3, so very strong quarter for Tesla. But if we look at BMW, because they are the one that is doing the best of the old legacy automakers in Germany, well, as Alex reported on X, BMW has reported an 84% drop in profits in Q3. Ouch. And that is mostly due to weak China sales. The profit margins before interest and tax thus fell 7.5 percentage points to 2.3%. Turnover fell by almost 16% to 32.4 billion euros and unit sales fell by 13%. These are extremely poor results for the company, which has always been seen as the positive example with its strategy of focusing on ICE as well as hybrids, BEVs, and even hydrogen. Like the other German manufacturers, BMW has announced that there will be salary cuts for employees. The good news is that regardless of this, the ramp-up of BEVs remains intact and also contributed to BMW's group success in the third quarter. Its BEV deliveries grew by 10.1% compared to previous year, while the share of the sales of fully electric vehicles rose to 19.1%. It is now clear, even to the last person, that all German car manufacturers are in deep crisis. Yes, it should be anyway, as Mercedes also had a very bad Q3 with revenue down 6.7% from Q3 last year, but their net income was down 52%. Profit margins was only 5%, down from 9.8%. But Mercedes does not have a good story in their BEV as BMW had. as Mercedes BEV sales are down almost 50% in China in Q3. Ouch! But what about good old Audi? Well, Alex made a post about their earnings as well. Audi in Q3 was down 91% in profits. Ouch! Audi only made an operating profit of 106 million euros in the third quarter. So 91% less than the same period last year. Damn! And Audi's CFO, Jürgen Rittersberger, cited the brand's 16% drop in sales to 407,000 cars sold, the very intense pricing competition in Europe and China, and the provisions for the plant in Brussels, which is being closed, as the reason for this. Despite all the guarantees for the core workforce, the plan is to cut 9,500 years of employment jobs by socially responsible means such as potential retirement and early retirement. Audi, like the other German car manufacturer, is in a serious structural crisis, and I don't think the bad news will end anytime soon. Yes, and we can see that not only is Audi in trouble, but they sold less cars in general, including the ICE cars in Q3, than Tesla did. Remember how Audi said they would catch up with Tesla with 7-mile boots? Well, it ended up being Tesla that caught up with Audi and overtook them in total sales instead, not just the BEVs. These are the sales numbers from 2023, where we can see that Audi just beat Tesla, and Mercedes and BMW brand just got over 2 million units in sales. But year to date, Audi has sold 1.25 million units globally. And Tesla, on the other hand, has sold 1.29 million units globally. So looking at Audi's downward trend and seeing Tesla's upward trend, I think 2024 will be the year that Tesla becomes a bigger automaker than Audi in units sold. Man, this is such a big test slap to Audi that thought they would catch up with Tesla in BEV sales, and now Tesla has caught up and overtaken them in total unit sales. And I had a little discussion with a guy here in Denmark back in 2021 who thought that Tesla would never become bigger than they was at that point, because now Audi and BMW would come with their EVs, so who would ever want to buy a Tesla again? Tesla would simply be run over by the Germans and maybe end up supplying them with electric motors or something like that. That would be the best outcome he could see for Tesla. And then fast forward 3 years and Tesla is now bigger than Audi and is the biggest car brand here in Denmark and the best-selling car in the world. And the collapse of the German auto industry is playing out right now, just as I tried to tell him, but those Tesla haters just won't listen to reason. And now basically all German car makers have made warnings about an earnings drop here in 2024, and we are seeing them all losing China and their profits. And this will only get worse as they lose more and more of China, as they cannot keep up with the shift to BEVs that is happening very, very fast in the country, and that was their biggest profit makers back in the days. So that is why we see the Germans are trying to find ways to save money, like Volkswagen that is planning about 3 plant closure and firing 30,000 people because they apparently missed its savings targets by several billion euros. And to put some more salt in the wounds, Tesla has raised the wages of all its employees at its Berlin factory by 4% since the start here of November, and giving permanent jobs to about 500 temporary workers. And the German union IG Metall was not involved in this. Temporary workers are very common in Germany, as it is very hard to fire people in the country that has a permanent job. That is why someone like Volkswagen also has a lot of their workforce being temporary workers, so they can actually fire them if need be. But as Human Resource Director at Tesla, Erik Daimler, said, this is further particular welcome news for our workforce, especially at a time when many companies in the German automotive industry are talking about job cuts and plant closure. Yes, this comes only a few days apart from Volkswagen that has proposed to cut wages of its brand by 10% to tackle weak demand and high cost. And BMW as well, as I just mentioned before. So Tesla gives employees more salary and give permanent job to 500 employers in Germany, while the Germans are firing people, talking about plant closure and cutting wages by 10%. This must hurt so bad for the old guys in Germany, that Tesla is doing so well while they are struggling both in Europe and especially in China. So when you hear Tesla is doomed and are doing bad in China, it is all just noise. As we have heard through the last decade, the legacy automakers are the ones struggling in China, getting kicked out of China, losing their profits and market share, where Tesla is actually growing even here in 2024. Not as much as we used to, but when we look at the other guys that are shrinking and dropping in profits in China by a huge margin and losing millions in unit sales over the last 5 years and losing their profits, it becomes very clear that Tesla is actually doing very, very well in both China and on the global stage, as the Tesla Model Y is still on track to become the best-selling car of any kind once again in Europe, China, now in the US as well, and of course in the world. So while the German stocks are down because their bad performance in Q3, well, Tesla saw a big jump after their earnings call because they showed off just how good they're doing compared to everyone else. And it seems like Tesla got a little helping hand here after the US presidential election, as many people was waiting for this, because if Harris won, it would probably not be easy being Tesla. But if Trump won, Tesla would suddenly get the support of the US government, which they have been fighting against for the last 4 years.
And I can remember your dramatic announcement that by 2035, GM would be 100% electric. You changed the whole story, Mary, wherever you are. There you are. You did, Mary. You electrified the entire automobile industry. I'm serious. You led, and it matters.
And after Trump won, Tesla's stock did jump up again to a new 52-week high of $288. So yes, Tesla is getting everything lined up for the future of the company and executing as they always do, while we are seeing the collapse of the German auto industry play out right now in front of our eyes. There is simply no hiding it anymore. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.